In the 1960s, the United States was very segregated. Black people were hated. Black men could not get certain jobs, participate in sports, or go to certain schools. Black children attended separate, less equipped schools. Segregation even existed in churches, residential districts, restaurants, theaters, and barbershops. It was during this time of segregation that Haskins made an unprecedented decision. Don Haskins chose to play 7 black men for his 1966 NCAA championship game. This game would become the basis for change in college basketball. It set a precedent that no matter what skin color you have, we are all equal when it comes to sports. Don Haskins was born in Enid, Oklahoma, March 14, 1930. Don went to Oklahoma State in 1949. In college, he was coached by Henry Iva, which led to Haskins being able to see past color but not skill. Haskins recruited his 1966 championship team because they're the only willing participants. Why would any white college-bound basketball player go to some dusty town in the middle of nowhere, Texas, for a basketball scholarship when they could go to one of the big city universities? He recruited Bobby Joe Hill from Highland Park High School, Michigan. He recruited David Lyon, who later went pro, from Evan E. Worthing Senior High in Houston, Texas. Don recruited Neville Shedd from Morris High in the Bronx, New York. He recruited Orson Artis from Gary Froebel High in Gary, Indiana. Willie Cager was recruited from the Bronx, New York. Harry Flournoy was recruited from Gary Emerson High in Gary, Indiana. Haskins recruited his final player, Billy Worsley, who also went pro, from DeWitt Clinton in the Bronx, New York. These were the starters in Haskins' famous 1966 NCAA championship game. Bobby Joe Hill was a 5'9" point guard that led Haskins starters into the 1966 championship NCAA game. Harry Flournoy was a 6'5" forward in his senior year. Then there was Willie Worsley, a small, 5'9" guard that was 175 pounds. David Lattin was a power forward that shot right-handed. Orson Artis was a starting guard in the 1966 championship game. He averaged 12.6 points a game and was the team's third highest scorer. Then there were the non-starters. Willie Cager was a 6'5" forward that weighed at 170 pounds. Neville Shedd was 6'9" and was nicknamed the Shadow. After the whole team was recruited, Haskins started to shape them from boys into men. Haskins worked his boys very hard in practice by running them and being very harsh on them. He did this because he knew that the competition in the bigger cities was very high. Don Haskins was the first basketball coach to start and play black players in an NCAA championship game. These were the men that changed history in the NCAA Basketball Association. Although these people made it look very easy, it was very hard for them traveling from place to place. They were discredited for their accomplishments. During the historic 1966 season, there wasn't much that could stop Don Haskins when he was on a mission. For example, his players, his family, and even himself experienced hatred and discrimination. There was so much dislike for Haskins that they would threaten to kill him, and his family. His players had their rooms destroyed before they ran out onto the court, and the fans threw trash at them. Although Haskins and his team faced these threats, they still persevered through the tough season. The Texas Western Miners gained notoriety when they played the Kansas Jayhawks. The game was a hard-fought win for the Texas Western Miners. What caused the thought of a huge controversial win for the hated Miners was that when Kansas's All-American JoJo White shot the game-winning shot, the referee saw that he'd stepped on the line out of bounds. This meant that the Texas Western Miners were going into the championship game against the heavily favored Kentucky Wildcats. Texas Western versus Kentucky was a game to watch. This was the NCAA 1966 championship game. When Texas Western entered the arena, people were throwing trash. They were also yelling at them while they were on the bench. But none of this changed the outcome of the game. Texas Western played their hardest. The score at the end of the game was Kentucky 65, Texas Western 72. Bobby Joe Hill had the biggest effect on the game, scoring 20 points for the Miners. They stunned Kentucky, and more importantly, they stunned the nation. People across the nation were stunned because Don Haskins was the first coach to start and play black players in an NCAA basketball championship game. This unprecedented move changed college basketball itself. Despite the success that he had early on, Haskins did not win any more championships after the memorable 1966 season. Haskins once quoted, "When I won that championship, I knew that I was giving up chances to win others." By the time he stopped coaching, his time was nearing. He died on September 7, 2008, due to congestive heart failure next to his friends and family.
Nothing is quite so still as an empty arena. You get the feeling Don Haskins liked the place like this. It is truly his place after all, El Paso's basketball cathedral, named for its patron saint. Oh, the miracles he pulled off. A liturgy El Paso knows, chapter and verse. Don Haskins would be the first to tell you he was no saint. But tell that to those African Americans who would notice Haskins in an airport and thank him out of the blue. Tell that to the poor village in Mexico with clothes and blankets from Haskins himself. Tell that to the blue-collar men in more than one bar in El Paso who got a free round on Haskins just because. We see the rolled-up program and the chair at the end of the row left open for his late friend and miners trainer Ross Moore. But the testament to Don Haskins lies mainly outside these walls, because the Bear recognized this arena full of people wasn't real life. Real life was conversation with a friend in his truck, quietly paying someone's hospital bill, picking a starting lineup by name, not by consequence. Many thought there should have been more of these banners, that the way this banner was won cost Don Haskins a chance at others. But it's fitting that there is only one. Fitting because the example it set stands out that much more. Kind of like the man himself. I'm Duke Keith.